Welcome to the Confident Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Anne, mama of two, holistic pregnancy and pediatric sleep consultant, and the founder of Empowered Decisions. In our seasons together, I'm here to help you step into your inner confidence from pregnancy to motherhood. Whether you are preparing to meet your baby or integrating into new mom life, this is a safe space with education and support for your journey. Join me as we raise the vibe of our motherhood collective. Welcome back to the Confident Motherhood Podcast. Hi, I'm Anne, your holistic pregnancy and infant and toddler sleep coach. And today's topic is talking about the explore calls that I do with families before sleep coaching. Now, I was trying to do some math on this because I've been coaching for 8 years, sleep coaching, infants, toddlers. And in that 8 years, I have supported or coached with around 700 families. So that probably means that I have had explore calls with probably well over 1,000 families. Now, when I do explore calls with families, that's what we're doing. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes when I connect with you. And we're identifying if we are a good fit for each other. I'm answering your questions and kind of navigating this. What sleep struggles are you experiencing? I always like to at least shed some initial light as to why you're experiencing the struggles that you're having, leave you with, hey, this is how I would improve this. And these are some of the recommendations that I would probably make. And then talk through how we work together so that families have really good initial insight into, is this a good fit? Do I want to move forward? And did I get my questions answered? Well, over the years, and let's say 1,000 sleep coaching explore calls, it is really common that I get asked the same questions. Now, these questions are not in quantity order of how many times I get asked, but I wanted to just kind of rattle off these questions. But please know that I'm going to be weaving in and out education into my answers, just mainly because that's how I work with families. I like to take a very education first approach so that you have insight into why I'm saying what I'm saying. Now, I felt if we're just going to dive in, we might as well dive in with a heavy hitter and talk about crying. Sometimes there will be this assumption that if a family is pursuing sleep training or sleep coaching, that they're cool with crying. Let me tell you, most families are not. 95 to 99% of the time, majority of families are concerned about crying. It is probably one of the top questions that I get asked. And usually it comes like this: Anne, I know that there is going to be some crying involved, but I'm not down with cried out. I'm not down with Ferber. And I also want to know when there is crying, what am I doing? When is too much? What are the different types of crying? How am I going to be able to help my child? It all boils down to that. So if you have kind of thought that you either need to be in camp crying or no crying, that doesn't really exist. It is very rare. I think I've maybe worked with just a couple families over the years that are just at their wits' end. They're like, look, there's so much crying that's happening anyways that please just give us guidance so that we can improve. So let's talk about crying and kind of how holistic and different forms of sleep coaching can vary from your more traditional cried out and Ferber. So unfortunately, cried out, the OG, right? It's what kind of kicked this whole thing off. And when you dive into the history of cried out, you can see why it has kind of cast this cloud, this umbrella over all sleep training. But the good news is that we've evolved. So yes, we went cried out to Ferber, and it has left families with this idea that the only way to improve your child's sleep is to leave them alone in a room crying. And that's just not what we're doing. So is there often crying involved when you're teaching your baby to sleep independently, right? We're not doing the holding and the feeding and the rocking and the bouncing anymore. Yeah, they're frustrated and they don't know what they're doing. But I always tell families, I can't promise you no crying in the methodology that I work with families, but I do promise families no crying in vain. So let's talk about what that means. The issue that I have, which I think at a foundation, as a parent, you have the right to choose whatever sleep training method. If you're choosing sleep training, whatever feels right for you, you have that choice. It's your baby. The problems that I have with cried out and Ferber is I feel like it's missing so many crucial elements to set up a baby to be successful in coaching. There's so many moving pieces, from their sleep environment to their schedule, to their sleep pressure, making sure that we have that good drive and readiness, to their nutrition, to so many different moving pieces that it's never just as simple as let's plop them in their crib or move them into their room and tonight's the night and they're just going to figure it out. If we don't have a good schedule, if we don't have good routines, if we don't have good sleep pressure, if we haven't identified your child, their development, their personality, and how we are going to support them, then oftentimes we are not setting them up for success. Oftentimes you will see excessive or more extended periods of time of crying. That for me is just unnecessary. So when I say I don't do any crying in vain, It means, like, for example, when I go into coaching with families, I'm like, we are protecting their sleep pressure at all costs going into that bedtime on night one. I want no drowsiness. And mind you, I'm setting you up with all these things. I'm giving you literally step by step of exactly what to do. Now, if I had a parent report to me, hey, Anne, our baby fully fell asleep on the bottle at bedtime, which, by the way, is very normal pre-coaching, then I would say we're going to abort mission tonight. Why? Because I know that baby just lost their sleep pressure. And if we then move forward and place that baby in their crib, one, their body's going to get a second wind because they just lost some of their drive, and they are going to be crying for an extended period of time. And that crying is really tough when we lose sleep pressure. That is crying in vain. Now, if you don't know this and you're just like, oh, okay, tonight we're doing cried out. Tonight we're doing Ferber, right? We're going to put our baby in our crib. We're going to be doing check-ins. And usually that's on a timed interval schedule. Some babies, it works really quickly, and some babies will experience more of that extended crying, unnecessary crying, because we didn't have all of those pieces to their puzzle that were so important to set them up to then ask them to sleep independently. So that's one. Yes, generally I tell families that they're going to be crying, but I, as your coach, I'm going to educate you. We are going to, like, everything that we are doing before we ever put your baby in their crib is equally as important as to what we're doing when we are coaching with them, which is point number 2 of what differentiates this type of coaching, holistic, a more gentle sleep coaching versus your traditional Ferber and cried out, is you get to be in there. You get to support them. And I think oftentimes, or my experience in the past 8 years, is that provides parents more comfort that they're not just abandoning their child, that they're not just kind of moving into a process that doesn't really feel aligned anymore. And I hear that a lot when I'm doing explore calls with families, like, we know we want to sleep train. We don't want to do it like this. We don't exactly know what all of our options are, but we also want to feel like we get to support our child. And I'm like, hi, yes, that's exactly what we're doing here. So there is no, I would say, right or wrong age to be coaching, but every age has its pros and its cons. So for example, younger babies, I work with a lot of families with younger babies where we get to do more. So we always get to be in the room, essentially. I don't care if we're talking infants, toddlers, etc. You get to be in the room. The type of coaching that we're doing is always going to vary by age, development, and personality. Now, and if we just look at age and personality, that plays a big role in it. So for example, younger babies, we're usually closest, if not right next to the crib, where we are getting to do more, we're engaging more. So we're always going to kind of offer one or both a mix of verbal coaching, which is like saying a little sleepy phrase to your little, reminding them and letting them know that you're there. They can hear you, they can smell you. And then physical touch coaching is where we reach out to give them a quick pat or a rub or a little hand on them. Again, we're providing that regulation and that coaching support with them in a physical way. So when I am assessing with families, I help you to identify, and based on my recommendations and my expertise, how I feel we should be supporting your child to, one, support them, not frustrate them, and for them to be able to put themselves to sleep in a reasonable amount of time. So if crying is of concern for you, those are really the things to think about. I don't really think any amount of crying as a parent is ever easy, right? I could, 1 or 2 minutes or 30 plus minutes. It's never easy. But when we're setting your little one up and they go through kind of this little mix, I always say that initially we usually have some sort of little hangout phase when we put them in crib where they're like, oh, okay, I'm awake, I'm chilling in here. This is new, right? They're not like fully aided or drowsy when we put them down. And then they'll move into a little bit more frustration crying, like, oh, I'm frustrated. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never had to do this before. Frustration crying is a little bit more elevated, a little bit more consistent, right? It doesn't have a ton of breaks in it. Then they move into roller coaster crying, and that's where we have the trying. They're starting to practice. We have some peaks, but we also have some valleys. And then generally they quiet down and then they put themselves to sleep. So on night 1, your baby is learning, actually developing skills to put themselves to sleep, which then basically changes the trajectory of the rest of their night. And I usually will share with families, especially in more extreme cases where you have babies that are waking up like 5, 7, 12, something crazy, like really broken nights of sleep, that I'm like, you're already in worst case scenario. This is worst case scenario. When we have good sleep pressure and they put themselves to sleep, generally we already see a better night of sleep. Not that they're not going to wake up or need support or have night wakings or need coaching, but we want to set them up, and that all starts with bedtime. So I just want to normalize and validate how you're feeling, that crying is never easy. We don't want them to be crying. And I want to create the steps and the guidance and the foundation with sleep so that as they're developing these skills, as they're learning to sleep, that's where crying goes away. There's a lot of frustration in new skills, but as that skill becomes foundational, that's where we see less and less. Generally, nighttime is a linear coaching process. Like night over night, it's getting easier. Even on night 2, I want to see 50% less in duration and intensity. Daytime has a lot more variety. Daytime generally is a little bit more complex for babies, so I always assess that child by child to give families really good expectations. But if you're worried about crying, you're not alone. And if you're looking for something in between, like not changing what's happening now, if you're experiencing sleep struggles, or kind of the other end of the spectrum where there's cried out and Ferber, holistic and more gentle sleep coaching is right in the middle of that, which generally provides a really good balance for parents where you can improve your child's sleep, get to support them, and move through those sleep frustrations. Okay, question number 2, and I probably should number these because I feel like I'm going to lose my place. So let's dive into the question that I get often. What if this doesn't work for my child? And I really love this question because one, as a parent, I think most of us as parents kind of assume that our child is the worst sleeper. Our child is the most stubborn, right? And they're like, I don't know, whatever is like quote unquote normal for babies or toddlers. I think my child may fall outside of this. So here's how I'm going to answer this with you. If you're concerned about like, okay, I do want to do sleep training, I'm just worried that it's not going to work for my child. One of the beautiful parts of being a holistic sleep coach is that even though foundationally, if we're looking at routines and schedules and approaches, there's general guidelines for different ages and development, all these different things. But I love that with each family, I am assessing your child's sleep struggles, your family dynamics, your sleep goals, so that as we are implementing this change, I want you to have long-term success. So in a certain way with me and how I work with families, there's not really ever a concern for me where I'm going into coaching. I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work for this child. Why? Because the true customization of sleep training and sleep coaching, when you're working with a coach, is that happens in the coaching process. So if there's something that I feel is not working, that's the art of the pivot. We get to change, we get to adjust, we get to kind of make sure that we are making adjustments that are working for your child. Now, I am not a pediatric sleep doctor, so I am never diagnosing sleep conditions or sleep disorders or those sorts of things. I do have a filtration education where I could potentially identify or help guide you with your own practitioner if I felt like there was even an inkling of a concern. But I would say 9.9 times out of 10, it just comes down to a really good holistic assessment, implementing a plan and adjusting as needed, if it was even needed while we're coaching, to make sure that it is working for your child and your family. Okay, number 3. I've tried to get my baby sleeping and it hasn't worked. What makes this any different? Now, it is very common when families come my way that they have tried 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is, whether they have tried sleep training with a coach, whether they have got an online course, whether they've read a book, whether they've just been taking in information from Google or social media or whatever, where you have attempted to improve sleep on your own and it just hasn't worked. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. Again, kind of going back to a holistic assessment, I always make sure that we're not missing anything. You literally could have 3 of the 5 elements needed, and there could just be things that are missing that a professional can then bring in and be like, okay, here's the missing pieces that we have. So when we implement this in this way, then we can see the improvement that you're looking for. So again, it is very common that I have families that come my way after some sort of failed attempts at trying to improve sleep or figure out schedules or sleep training in some way. And I always have a lot of confidence when I go into families with that way, that whether it's my just natural competitive nature or I love sleep problem solving, I'm like, game on, let's do it. Let's go through kind of what you've done. Let's assess your baby now, the development now and their age. And let's make sure that we're really uncovering all of those different pieces so that when we do implement something new, it's going to stick. And I'm going to give you the tools to do that. There is definitely probably a lot of when we are quote unquote trying things, sometimes we just don't try things for long enough, right? We may try something for 1 or 2 nights, or we're going to try this schedule or that schedule, or implement this routine or try this bedtime. And sometimes it's just like throwing spaghetti on the wall. There's just too many things that are being thrown around and it feels like this is not working. But really when it comes to infant and toddler sleep, routines, consistency, commitment, really sticking with it. Generally about 1 to 2 weeks is what it's going to take for that foundation to really be laid and to really see the improvement that we want to see. And sometimes we just don't try things long enough. So if you've tried to get sleep on track before and it just hasn't worked, just know that when we look at all the layers and we implement a new plan with consistency, that's where the sleep magic happens. Number 4, and again, these are not in order of priority. Do I need to be home for coaching? What if my baby is in daycare or preschool? Like, what am I going to need to do scheduling wise to make sure that I can commit to coaching and we can be successful? I really love this question because it already tells me that you are already starting to plan and think of like, how can we make this work? So let's just kind of dive into these mix of questions that are all rooted in the same thing around scheduling and just having the capacity for it. So do you need to be home for coaching? Yes, in general. Doesn't mean that you have to be in sleep jail like perfectly. When I work with families, it's for 2 weeks. Program itself is 10 days. So I say, if you can give me the 10 days at home, give me the 10 days at home. The extra days beyond 10, the extra 4 days is really just to make sure that things are well and you've gotten time to answer your questions about life moving forward. But 10 days is program. I would say the most common start day is on a Friday. Like, let's say parents, you have like a traditional work schedule. Friday is a great start night, but I literally start with families at any day of the week. What works for you works for me. So the more home time, the better. Why? Because we can control routines and scheduling and those sorts of things. Now, when it comes to daycare, I would say aside from quarantine time in our lives, majority of the time I'm working with families, babies are in daycare. That's pretty normal. Sometimes not the case. So maybe it's like a 60-40 split, but it's very normal that daycare is a part of the equation. And that has its own kind of conversation. Actually, I recently it's one of the newer episodes in season 3 where I talk about daycare questions, transitions, like how to set yourself up for a smooth transition. So definitely check out that episode of daycare is in your equation at all. But when we start coaching, it's all about nighttime in that first week, even though if your baby was home, we would also be doing daytime coaching. I do not expect daycares to be doing daytime coaching, but I have a document that I share with you that here's all the questions that I would want you to ask daycare because I want to have the most visibility. I want you to have visibility so that as we are committing to coaching at home at nighttime or daytime coaching on the weekends, we have a really good understanding of both sleep environments, both schedules. Is there similarities? Are there things that daycare can honor? Are there things that they won't honor? So we can still coach and have success, even if your little one is in daycare. It just takes some extra communication between us and with daycare, just to make sure, again, that we're setting them up for success. So sometimes I'll have families ask me, do I need to take time off from work in order to do coaching? And sometimes this is maybe one parent is going to be carrying the load of sleep coaching, or maybe you're like, hey, I just don't want to be kind of navigating both work and sleep coaching. For me, I never say it's a requirement. Sometimes families are like, hey, I have some extra days. Should I take them? And I always say, if you want to take off extra time because you really want to dive in and dedicate your time to sleep coaching, go for it. Not a requirement though. Like, we can definitely work sleep training into your schedule, whether that's what we're doing at nighttime, what we're doing in the daytime. What I do recommend is let's not pick a week or a day or whatever it is where you've got back-to-back meetings, travel, events, parties, all these are, and you're just not home, because that's just not a great fit for coaching. And there's not always a perfect 2 weeks in the calendar where nothing is going on. So this is usually something where if there are things that are going on, I will work with families. Okay, what is it? When is it? What's the time? What day are we starting? And I'll give my advice. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, totally go. Not a big deal. And other times I'm like, okay, well, maybe we'll start the next night since you're probably going to be home from that dinner or whatever is later. And we just work together. We look at the calendar and we pick a timing, like total window for coaching together. And of course, a best start night, just so that we're kicking off in a really great way. Okay, this is probably a really great segue into the next question is, okay, once we coach, right? So families are envisioning, okay, we've coached, we've sleep trained, our baby's sleeping great. What happens when we travel? What happens when my baby gets sick? Will sleep go backwards? Will I need to re-coach them? And I freaking love this question. You know why? Because I say this so confidently, and I have for years. When you coach in this way, and your baby has a sleep foundation. What does a sleep foundation mean? It means that they have sleep skills. That means they can put themselves to sleep at bedtime, in the middle of the night, for naps. They've learned to lengthen their naps. They're on a good schedule. We've gotten rid of overtiredness. They're eating efficiently. And you have the tools in understanding your child's sleep. They don't just wake up one day and sleep. goes backwards, right? There's a lot of my baby's going through the X month, fill in the blank, right? Fill in the blank sleep regression. And I always confidently say, when you coach with me and in this way and we lay a foundation, there's no regressions. We're not just going backwards. Can travel, illness, and teething cause sleep disruption? Yes. So when I wrap up with you, I have a wrap up document. And in that document, I break down these things, not only a schedule transition moving forward, a projected schedule, depending on where we're coaching and then what's beyond that. So you have a really solid understanding of like, hey, what schedule is moving forward. But I also have pages dedicated to travel, teething, and illness, because these are things that can disrupt sleep. But I always want if you have a foundation, you know how to navigate those things and the signs to look for, then you can travel and either keep sleep on track, or if things did get off track, you know how to get back on track. If your little one gets sick, babies can still sleep when they're sick. But let's say it was a more severe illness and things did get off track, you know how to get back on track. Teething, they're teething for 3 years. There's not too much that we can do about that. But the signs to look for and when they're teething and remedies that we can, all of these things, the more that we know, knowledge truly is power. These are not things that ultimately is going to derail and sleep has to go backwards. But let's look at the flip side of that. Let's say sleep did go backwards. Let's say you're like, oh, I regressed and all these things and I reintroduced their sleep aids and I wasn't following a schedule, routines, everything just went off. Could you still get sleep back on track? Yes. Why? Because one, we worked together for 2 weeks. And in that 2 weeks, I educated you all the time, constant sleep education, so that you are still left with those tools no matter what. There's kind of no way to go through sleep coaching and not be left with those tools. But also you have your sleep plan. I always deliver a sleep plan to a family before we get started, and it's meaty, but I want it to be meaty not just because I want you to have good guidance and something to refer back to when we're coaching. I want you to have that long term so you can always refer back to that. And if you needed to kind of clean things up a little bit or get sleep back on track, you have that. So I think I always want families to have the confidence that when we coach, this isn't just about 2 weeks. This is really about like long-term healthy rest for your child and for you. But those tools and that understanding of sleep is really what allows you to keep your little one a good sleeper long term and through all these potential things that can disrupt sleep. Okay, next question. Families will often ask, okay, I feel like I'm wanting to move forward, but what does the working together actually look like? What happens when I have questions? Like, are you answering my questions in the middle of the night? What does this look like? So let's kind of give you a little rundown of being a part of Empowered Sleep and what that coaching process looks like. So we're talking right now about all these questions that happen on an Explore call, which is step number 1, and which is linked on my website and my socials, and even in the podcast notes. You can book a free sleep coaching Explore call, again, generally about 20 minutes. After that call, I send you a follow-up email, kind of add some notes from what we talked about, whether you chose a package or you wanted to see the offerings, whatever it is. I send you a follow-up email so you have everything that you need in that email to book and get started. Once you choose your support options, you then get a welcome email from me and with next steps. You're going to fill out an intake for me. And sometimes we schedule our coaching prep session on that call, and sometimes it comes after booking. But the next step is to hop on a virtual prep session, which generally takes about an hour to an hour and a half. That's where we're diving into everything. I always say, just show up. All you have to do is show up. You don't have to take notes. I'm going to be taking notes and asking questions and walking you through everything. It's a very thorough. I like to keep it very like communicate, just chat style. And then I take all that information, I put it in a sleep plan, and I deliver it back to you before our decided upon night 1 of coaching. Now, once we start night 1 of coaching, so we've already done our session. You already have your sleep plan. You've read through, you're prepped, you're ready to go. And I also have other things that I send you in the way just to make sure that you're prepped and ready. Once we start night 1, you then have me for 2 weeks. So generally anything from Explore call to booking is just kind of our pre-work that we're doing. Once we're working together, depending on the support option that you've chosen, it's very one-on-one. I've evolved my support packages quite a bit over the past few years because I just truly feel that sleep coaching requires a lot of support. And I think the more hand-holding, but hand-holding with an education, right? Because I want you to be able to fly after we've worked together and not for me to then be your crutch and you can't solve sleep or understand sleep without me. I wouldn't be doing a good job as a coach if that is how we work together. But I want you to be able to get your questions answered and really understand there's like a million different scenarios that can pop up with sleep, and not all of that can be communicated in advance. A lot of that just naturally happens in the coaching process. So depending on the support option, I have my core option, Empowered Core, which includes Voxer support. Voxer is kind of like a walkie-talkie, voice note, text, video, photo. And we have a daily chat, and I get into that chat daily and I answer questions, and I'm reviewing tracking because I have another app where you're tracking all the data, and we are communicating. So you get voice notes from me every day and we're talking through everything. In my top package, which is Empowered Plus, in addition to Voxer, which we have more than one checkpoint a day, we also have support calls. And I'm also on call with you bedtime on night one as you are coaching for the first time. So I think always it will come down to a mix of cost and what type of coaching experience you're looking for. And I think that's really important, that family to family, I always tell them, doesn't matter for me, it doesn't matter what package you're going with. I want to make sure that it feels like a good fit for you. I'm still going to pour into you in both of those packages. So we work really closely together. And I think when you have a really solid assessment, a solid plan, and daily communication, there's not really a need for communicating in the middle of the night sort of scenario. Now, not that there's not things that we track or we want to talk about, a night waking or this or a night feed, these sorts of things, of course. But those generally, I'm not leaving you with, oh, well, I'm not really sure, figure it out. You figured out in the middle of the night. No, I'm having a step-by-step and a plan for day, for night, for scheduling, for feeding. Every little part of your little one's schedule, we have a good game plan for, which sends you into your days and your nights with confidence that you know what to do and that you know what the plan is. Next question that I get. My top package, I put a stamp, empowered stamp of guarantee on it. And families will ask me, how? And how do you guarantee sleep? Like, this doesn't even make sense to me of how you can actually guarantee it. So let's talk through it. It is very understandable to think we're working with a little human being. So how can we guarantee that something's going to happen? And I'll share in this way. Your investment in sleep is my investment in you. So I would say, gosh, 9.9, 9.5. Majority of the time when families are seeking, booking, and starting a sleep coaching process, they're serious. They're committed. They're wanting this. So when you're committed and we are staying connected daily and I'm reviewing tracking, I can see it. You've brought me into your home with the data. I can see our plan being implemented. We're communicating. I'm answering questions. We are adjusting. We're troubleshooting. I'm educating you. All the things. We are going to get your little one sleeping. And I always say this too. We work together for 2 weeks. I would never let you get to the end of 2 weeks and be like, something's off. That's weird. No, there's things that I'm looking for in the first night, in the first 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours. There's things and improvement and progress that I'm looking for along the way that tells me if things are on plan or off plan or whatever the case may be. So that's where the guarantee comes in. I put the stamp of guarantee on Empowered Plus versus Empowered Core because I have the most visibility. We are talking, we are messaging, you are tracking, I'm on call with you at bedtime on night one. So with all of that visibility, it gives me really good confidence that when we go into coaching, we are going to have success. Now, if we were nearing the end of the time, because families are like, okay, that makes me feel better, that sounds great, but what if, right? There still goes back to that thought that your child is going to be the one that it doesn't work for. Like I said, I'm not a pediatric sleep doctor. I do not pretend to be. If there were things along the way that I felt were outside of our container, outside of my expertise, I would just be sharing that with you. And we would talk about other resources or guidance or whatever the case may be. But honestly, it is so very rare. It has been just a little sprinkle, like I'm talking 8 years into 700 families that I feel like there was still work that needed to be done beyond. And sometimes that means just kind of staying on for a few extra days, or sometimes families have booked additional support just to make sure that we're really there. So does it happen on very rare occasion? Yes. But majority of the time when you're jumping into this sort of sleep coaching and we're working together, we are going to have success. And that's why I have the confidence to put that stamp of guarantee on Empowered Plus. Okay, we are nearing the end of our questions, but let's switch gears a little bit because this is another question that comes up quite a bit. I want to keep nursing my baby. I am a breastfeeding mom, but I also want to get my baby sleeping, which I really love because I always say, you do not have to choose between nursing and a sleeping baby. You actually get to have both. Now, full transparency, because I've done other podcast episodes about this, both of my boys I was a human pacifier. Both of them were nursed to sleep early on. I was a human pacifier. Like, they full on had feed sleep associations. And I also knew I was going to get to a point where I wanted to get them sleeping. So it's never about choosing between breastfeeding and sleep. It's just about adjusting to when and how they get nutrition. When babies are using the breast or bottle to fall asleep, feeding is a recipe for an association. It's all things comforting. That is natural. There's no issue in that. And if that's working for you, beautiful. But also oftentimes what's happening is like, okay, I'm nursing you and I'm putting you to sleep. Oh, it didn't work. Okay, I'm nursing you again. Okay, you're waking up nursing, which is very normal early on, right? But as that continues and your baby gets older and older, usually what moms are sharing with me is I don't really think that they're hungry this many times in a night, whether that's 2, 3, 5, 7, whatever it is. I really just think that they're looking to soothe, which I'm fine with, like waking up and needing a night feed, but their nights are very broken. Their sleep is broken. My sleep is broken. So when we move around when and how your little one gets nutrition, we want them waking up and being on the breast nice and hungry, where they're fully emptying the breast, which actually supports better supply and demand. So we usually will move babies away from snacking, where we see lots of kind of on and off on breast all day, on and off on breast all night. And again, there's a difference between a young baby and a baby that's say 6 months or 8 months or 12 months or a toddler, right, that's doing this. So again, that's why a holistic assessment, baby to baby, age to age is so important. But the simple answer is yes, after I just talked for 2 minutes, right? The simple answer is yes. You get to get your baby sleeping and you get to keep nursing. We are just going to help them break that association with that is the thing that they need in order to fall asleep. We want them developing their sleep skills, all while learning to feed efficiently. And we're just generally moving that nursing session from before or to falling asleep to upon wake up. So when they wake up in the morning, they get to nurse with you, wake up from their naps, get to nurse with you. And sometimes we're doing things like top off feeds where maybe if they weren't interested in a nurse, we get to offer it again, those sorts of things. But you get to have both. Keep on with your nursing journey for however long you want your nursing journey to be and have a sleeping baby. Okay, last top question, which I think is putting us at 9 questions, which feels good. 9 is the number of completion. So this comes up a lot where families will share, especially moms, like, I'm it, right? I am the one who is getting baby to go to sleep. I'm the one kind of saving the day. Not always can my husband or my partner put our child to sleep. They try, or maybe for mom, it's nursing or whatever it is that mom's doing. And sometimes the opposite parent has their own thing, like their own association. So let's say mom's nursing, maybe the other parent is the one that's doing rocking and that's what works for them. But a lot of times mom's like, it's just me, like whether it's a nanny or parents or a partner, like it just doesn't work the way it works for me. And I would love to be able to bring my partner and bring my husband in to be more involved. And like, it doesn't matter if it's me or it's them, we can both put our baby to sleep. And a lot of times that it just it alleviates some pressure when it feels like it's just you. In some ways as a mom, that feels so cool, right? To be like, it's me, my baby wants me. But depending on how long that journey is going on for, sometimes it also comes at a cost, and it's taxing in that way when our physical body or our presence is required for every sleep, every bedtime, every night waking, every nap. And sometimes also moms just want a little bit more confidence, like, okay, if I have to do X, Y, or Z, dad can step in, partner can step in, and they can get our little one to sleep. 100% yes. Why? Because when your baby is learning to sleep independently and they have this foundation, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's you doing the routine and putting them down, or it's dad, or it's grandma, or it's nanny, or it's daycare. They're the one doing it. So it's relinquishing you of being the only one possible to get your little one to fall asleep at bedtime or for naps, because they're doing it. So it's kind of like this transfer of ownership in a way. But I have seen the confidence and the joy and the excitement on the other parent's face and in their energy when they're sending me notes and reports on like, I did it. I was able to do it. We did a routine. Sometimes the other parent just wants to be involved. They just want to be able to do these things, but also for it to be successful. I see so many times the other parent is like, I am in this with my wife. I am in this. It just doesn't work, right? And I'm not able to kind of soothe our baby or to be able to help without adding more stress to my partner or my wife. So I just want you to know that when we're coaching, yes, this is about your little one learning to do it. Both of you having an education, knowing what to do in any case, however you divide the labor and whatever it is, balanced or not balanced. But I want families to have that freedom and that confidence that as we coach, you get to be more involved. Okay, we did it. We went through 9 questions, and not that there's not always more questions. I invite you to book a free sleep coaching explore call with me. Every weekend, generally, I update my availability for sure for that upcoming week, if not the week after that. Sometimes I'm between 1 and 2 weeks out, but my schedule is constantly changing. So I'm constantly adding new times, new days, some morning, midday, evening. I try to have some variety where we can connect. You can share with me what's going on with your little one. I hope that these questions were helpful if they answered questions that you had been thinking about. But please, I always love doing explore calls before we move forward because I feel like it's such a really good way to connect and get those questions answered so that you have the confidence in making sure that we are a good team as we move forward to get your baby sleeping. You can have that. There's far too many of us, because this was me early on, where we're just suffering in silence. We kind of think it's just a rite of passage with parenthood, that sleep will eventually get better. No suffering in silence. If you want to get sleep on track, you want to improve sleep, but you want to do it alongside support, I invite you to book a sleep coaching explore call, and I can't wait to connect with you. So until the next episode, lots of love. Whether you're a tired mom struggling with your little one's sleep, or an expecting mom looking for empowerment and advocacy as you prepare for birth, I'm here to show up for you with proven strategies and education to elevate your journey. You deserve to feel heard and given the tools to have success. Mama, you do not have to navigate your pregnancy or sleep struggles alone. Head over to empoweredwithann.com to discover how we can support you. Confidence, empowerment, and peace are just a click away.